I started out doing cut paper not for any other reason, but I had a lot of paper. I did printmaking in college, and I fell in love with it. I loved getting my hands dirty, and I loved coming home sweaty from, working with a litho stone. And it was such a departure from being in the computer lab with graphic design work that something just stuck with me. But when I moved from college, I had a crap load of paper and nothing to do with it. So I had toyed with doing some collage work, and so I was like, well, why don't I try taking this into what I was doing? And it started doing, a combination of, monoprints with found paper image collages, and then it just kind of morphed into what if I just used my paper? I use a set palette of papers. I always use art papers. They're fine art papers from a few different companies, and they all have different kind of patterns, different colors, different textures, different weights. So they all have their own characters. But I really like limiting myself to a finite color palette, so I think it's a more challenging thing to try to really pull off something realistic only using these papers that exist already. Most of the time it takes is trying to figure out how to actually create the work. Birds are a great example. It took me probably about 5 years how to actually pull off feathers to make them look real. And the same thing with hair. Hair took me like 3-4 years before I could figure out how do I make it look accurate in real life. And I think the process and the challenge of that, for me, is most the fun. The actual putting it together part, that does get a little tedious, but I like the puzzle it takes to try to figure out how to make it be correct. I do create a lot of pretty ladies. I do like the pinups. For me, it's all about, I love that time period. I love the fashion. I love what was perceived as beauty back then and how, all sizes and all women were beautiful. All the pinups for the ones I'm creating now they're all kind of based on people I know or famous women from the past. Like, I'm working on a piece, it's based off Barbara Eden. So her name is Eden. Another one is actually based on my mom, and one is based on me, and, a few more are based on my friends. So I try to give them era appropriate names, but as well that they actually go with someone, because each piece reminds me of someone, and that's kind of how I link that together. I don't create faces, not because I can't. I've done it many times before, but one thing that I found is when I put the face on there, it actually changes the entire feeling of the piece. The face actually turns it to be somewhat cartoony when it's on versus the entire look and the aesthetic of what I want. So I did create faces in the very beginning, and I actually just started working without them and doing them last to see how I liked it. And one day I just looked at it before I put the face on, and I thought it looked great. And then when I, placed the features of the face, I was like, nope, don't like it as much. And so I just kind of stopped doing faces altogether. I like birds a lot. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. I'm also terrified of birds. When I was a little girl, I got pooped on when I was maybe in 3rd grade at the Girl Scout Hall of Fame Museum or whatever it's called, and it was a bit traumatic. And ever since then, I just don't like to be around birds. But I really appreciate them. I think they're beautiful, they're fascinating. Every time I see them walk, I feel like they should have a little xylophone soundtrack and they make me laugh. And I kept toying with feathers and it was just not working, and then suddenly figure out how to do them, and it makes me really, really love birds. And I'm not afraid of them anymore. I've actually held a few, so I'm definitely getting over my fears, but it's just more for appreciation of how beautiful they are. There's always work in my mind that just wants to get out. A lot of pieces I want to finish birds and my pinups, but something I've been toying with is taking what's reality and making it modified reality. Like things, like I really want to do a fortune teller with, really long extended fingers, but keeping the anatomy that would be correct. Hybrid animals is something that I really want to do so badly. The Giraffopus, didn't work out so much because of anatomy issues, but I'm trying to learn the science behind these things so that when I put them together, they can still be correct. Because for my work, or how I feel my work is best, is when it's actually correct, anatomically correct, scientifically correct, or something that could be made sense of by, you know, the features and the forms. Kind of how makeup artists have when they do giant creatures. You know, there has to be some sort of logic behind it to make sense. And that's how I feel that these pieces need to be. And so it's something I keep toying with, and it's been, you know, toying with for a really long time, but, you know, another idea just seems to pop in my head before that. So, you know, it's just anything that pops in, I want to create. And so someday it will all be done.